Imagine two people standing at the starting line. One is gifted, faster, stronger, naturally talented. The other is average, not the smartest, not the most skilled, but determined to show up every single day. 1 year later, who do you think will be ahead? Most people would bet on the talented one. But life rewards consistency more than talent. The world doesn't always belong to the smartest or the most talented. It belongs to the ones who refuse to stop showing up. Talent is often glorified in our world. We admire the naturally gifted athlete, the person who seems to learn faster, perform better, and shine without effort. We look at them and think, they are destined for greatness. But talent alone has never guaranteed success. Talent without consistency is like owning a powerful sports car, but never learning how to drive it. The potential is there, the engine is roaring, but if you never put it on the road every day, if you never take it for a journey and commit to the process, it will sit there and gather dust. Every single one of us has witnessed talented people fall behind. In school, we saw brilliant students who never studied yet scored high marks. But eventually, many of them faded because they relied too much on what came easily to them. Meanwhile, the average students, the ones who stayed up late to revise, who kept practicing, who kept putting in effort day after day, started to catch up. And before long, they surpassed the ones who depended only on talent. This is a story that repeats itself in every workplace, every sport, every business. Talent is a gift, but it can also be a trap if it makes you lazy. When things come naturally, there's a temptation to stop pushing yourself, to coast on what you already have. That's when inconsistency creeps in. You stop practicing as often, you stop preparing as carefully, you stop showing up when it's hard because you think you can get away with it. And for a while, maybe you can, but life has a way of humbling even the most talented people if they fail to stay consistent. Consistency, on the other hand, is the great equalizer. It gives ordinary people an unfair advantage over those who are naturally gifted but lack discipline. Imagine a person with no special talent who decides to practice one skill every single day for 1 hour. At first, they are bad at it, and they know it. But they keep going. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. Suddenly, they are no longer average. They have outworked and outgrown many of the talented, ones who started far ahead of them. Think about the gym. The person who works out for 2 hours once every 2 months will never get the results of someone who spends 30 minutes exercising 5 times a week. Talent is like that 2-hour workout, impressive, but rare. Consistency is the person showing up regularly, refusing to stop building strength bit by bit. Eventually, consistency builds a body, a skill, a career, a reputation that talent alone could never sustain. What makes this truth so powerful is that it puts success within everyone's reach. You may not be born with exceptional intelligence, natural charisma, or perfect circumstances, but you can show up, you can commit to the process, you can be the person who refuses to quit. And when you choose consistency, you take control of your destiny instead of leaving it to chance or talent. When you look at the most successful people in history, you will realize they were not necessarily the most talented when they began. They were simply the ones who refused to disappear. They kept showing up long after the talented ones got bored. They kept building brick by brick when others gave up halfway. And eventually, they became the example of what talent looks like. But it was really just consistency wearing the mask of greatness. Consistency builds momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in human progress, yet most people never get to experience its full potential because they quit too soon. Momentum is not created in a single day, nor does it arrive with a burst of excitement. It is born quietly, almost invisibly, in the small, repeated choices you make every single day. It begins the moment you decide to keep going even when the results are not immediate, even when no one is applauding, even when you are tired and tempted to take a break. Each time you choose to take action instead of making excuses, you are adding one more brick to the wall of momentum. The beauty of momentum is that it rewards patience. In the beginning, progress feels painfully slow. You may feel like nothing is changing, like all your effort is just disappearing into the void. But then, something incredible happens. The small, consistent actions you have been taking start to connect. They start to stack on top of each other, creating results you can actually see, feel, and measure. Suddenly, the work that once felt heavy becomes easier. The routine that once felt forced becomes automatic. And the path that once felt steep starts to feel smooth. This is the magic of momentum. It multiplies your efforts and gives you a sense of forward motion that carries you further than motivation ever could. Imagine pushing a heavy car that has stalled on the road. At first, the car refuses to move. You push with all your strength and it barely budges an inch. Your muscles ache, sweat drips down your face, and part of you wants to stop. But if you keep pushing, little by little, the car starts to roll. Once it begins to move, every step becomes easier. The same effort that felt impossible at the beginning now feels manageable. And if you keep pushing, the car gathers speed until it begins to roll almost by itself. That is exactly how consistency works. It takes a huge amount of energy to start, but once you create momentum, your actions start working for you instead of against you. Momentum also changes your mindset. When you see progress, even in small doses, you begin to believe in yourself more. Confidence grows not because someone told you that you could do it, but because you have proof that your effort is paying off. This belief fuels even more action, which in turn creates more progress. It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle, and before you know it, you are no longer struggling to start each day. You are being pulled forward by the force of your own progress. This is why consistency is far more powerful than sporadic bursts of hard work. Working intensely for one day and disappearing for 2 weeks will never give you momentum. It is the quiet, steady rhythm of daily commitment that builds unstoppable force. The person who writes 1 page every day will eventually have a book. The person who invests a small amount of time daily into learning a new skill will one day be considered an expert. The person who trains consistently, even if the sessions are short, will build strength that someone who trains irregularly can never match. Momentum is not just about results, it is about identity. Every day you show up, you reinforce the idea that you are someone who takes action, someone who honors their commitment, someone who is serious about growth. And when that identity becomes strong, quitting becomes unthinkable. You have come too far, built too much, invested too deeply to stop now. That is the power of momentum. Once you have it, it becomes your greatest ally. Consistency creates trust. Trust is one of the most valuable currencies in life, and consistency is the only way to earn it. When you are consistent, you teach both yourself and the world that you can be counted on. People begin to rely on you because they know you will follow through. You start to rely on yourself because you see proof that you keep your promises. This is not just about keeping commitments to others. It is about keeping commitments to yourself. Every time you decide to show up, to stay true to the routine you have chosen, you are strengthening the belief that you are capable, disciplined, and dependable. Consider for a moment how trust is built in relationships. It does not happen overnight. It is not created by a grand gesture or one powerful act. Trust is formed over time, through repeated demonstrations of reliability. When someone shows up for you again and again, when they keep doing what they said they would do, you begin to relax around them, to feel safe, to believe in their word. The same principle applies to yourself. The more you show up for your own goals, the more you start to believe that you will not abandon yourself halfway. And that belief is incredibly empowering because it eliminates the constant doubt that often stops people before they even start. Inconsistency, on the other hand, destroys trust faster than anything. Think about someone who makes promises but never keeps them. After a while, you stop believing them, no matter how passionately they speak. The same thing happens internally. Every time you skip the work you said you would do, every time you break your own routine, every time you let procrastination win, you send a message to yourself that your word cannot be trusted. Slowly, this erodes your confidence. You begin to hesitate, second-guess yourself, and lose faith in your ability to follow through. That loss of trust is devastating because it makes it nearly impossible to commit to anything new with full conviction. Consistency repairs and strengthens that inner trust. Imagine telling yourself that you will wake up early every day and actually doing it for a month. At first, it is difficult, and part of you does not fully believe it will last. But as the days go by and you keep rising with the alarm, something powerful happens. Your belief in yourself grows. You start to trust your own discipline. You start to trust that you will show up again tomorrow. This trust becomes a foundation for everything else in your life. The same principle applies to how others see you. Employers trust employees who are consistent in their performance. Customers trust businesses that deliver the same quality again and again. Friends and family trust the people who are present when they say they will be. Consistency creates a reputation that is more valuable than talent, because while talent may impress people once, consistency earns their respect for a lifetime. When people can trust you, doors open. Opportunities flow toward those who have proven they can be counted on. And when you can trust yourself, you stop sabotaging your own progress. You no longer rely on luck or chance because you know you will put in the work. You become your own source of certainty in an uncertain world. Trust is not given, it is earned through repeated action. That is why consistency is so powerful. It is not just building habits, it is building credibility. With others, with yourself, and with the future you are trying to create. Consistency beats motivation. Motivation is often treated like the magic key to success. But anyone who has chased big goals knows that it is unreliable. Motivation feels great when it is there. It gives you energy, excitement, and a burst of determination. But it is also temporary. It comes and goes depending on your mood, your circumstances, and even the weather. Some days you wake up inspired, ready to conquer the world, and other days you wake up tired, discouraged, and completely uninterested in taking action. If you build your life around waiting for motivation, you will never reach your full potential, because you will only act when you feel like it. Consistency is what takes over when motivation fades. It is the quiet commitment to do what needs to be done regardless of mood. It does not depend on inspiration or good timing. It depends on discipline. This is why consistency is far more powerful. Motivation might start the fire, but consistency keeps it burning even when the initial excitement has worn off. Those who achieve extraordinary results are not the ones who always feel motivated. They are the ones who keep showing up when the feeling is gone. Think about a professional athlete. They do not get to skip training simply because they are not motivated that day. They train because it is part of who they are. Over time, the repetition becomes automatic. The same thing can happen for anyone willing to commit. What begins as effort eventually becomes habit. And when it becomes habit, it no longer requires the emotional high of motivation. It becomes part of your identity, something you do as naturally as breathing. This is one of the biggest differences between people who succeed and those who stop halfway. The ones who wait for motivation will work hard only in short bursts, creating cycles of progress and collapse. They will get excited about a new project, pour themselves into it for a week, then lose energy and stop, leaving it unfinished. The consistent person, however, will keep moving even when they are tired, even when they feel uninspired, even when no one is cheering them on. Over time, this steady approach creates a level of progress that seems almost impossible to those who only act when motivated. Another reason consistency is more reliable is that it teaches you emotional resilience. By showing up on difficult days, you train yourself to handle discomfort. You learn that you do not need perfect conditions to make progress. You learn to work even when it is raining, when you are tired, when the results are slow, when the excitement has faded. This kind of mental toughness is worth more than any motivational speech or temporary burst of energy because it gives you the ability to keep going no matter what. Motivation is a spark, consistency is the engine. Without consistency, the spark dies out and leaves you stuck in the same place, dreaming about what could have been. With consistency, even the smallest steps eventually add up to something powerful. And once you realize that you can take action without waiting for inspiration, you unlock a level of freedom that very few people ever experience. You no longer depend on mood or chance, you depend on discipline, and discipline never fails when applied daily. Consistency beats motivation because it is dependable. It will carry you through the dull days, the hard seasons, and the moments when everything feels heavy. It will keep you moving forward until one day you look back and realize that the person you have become is far stronger than the person who started. Not because you were always motivated, but because you refuse to stop. Consistency turns fear into confidence. If fear is one of the biggest obstacles that holds people back from pursuing their goals. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. These emotions have stopped countless dreams before they even began. What many people do not realize is that fear is not a signal to stop. It is a sign that you are stepping into something new, something meaningful. The difference between those who live in fear and those who transform fear into power is not courage alone. It is repetition. Consistency is the secret ingredient that slowly transforms fear into confidence. because each time you show up, you prove to yourself that fear does not control you. At first, fear feels overwhelming. The first time you speak in front of an audience, your hands shake and your voice trembles. The first time you try a new skill, your mistakes feel humiliating. The first time you take a risk, your mind is flooded with doubt. But what happens if you keep showing up? You deliver another speech, and this time your voice shakes a little less. You practice the skill again, and this time you make fewer mistakes. You take another risk, and this time you feel a little braver. Slowly, day after day, repetition turns what was once terrifying into something normal. Consistency does something powerful to your brain. It rewires it. The more you face a situation, the less threatening it becomes. What used to paralyze you becomes familiar. The fear does not completely disappear, but it loses its power to stop you. You stop wasting energy imagining the worst-case scenario, and instead you start focusing on improving your performance. Every small win builds a new layer of confidence until eventually, the activity that once filled you with dread becomes something you actually enjoy. Think about a child learning to ride a bicycle. The first attempt is wobbly, clumsy, and full of falls. But every time the child gets back on the bike, they improve. Soon the falls are less frequent, then they disappear completely. And one day, without even realizing it, the child is riding with ease, feeling the wind on their face, laughing at the very thing they once feared. That is what consistency does. It turns a place of fear into a place of freedom. The same process applies to any area of life. A person afraid of starting a business gains courage by taking one small step every day toward their vision. Someone who fears failure in their career gains strength by repeatedly putting in the work, facing challenges, and proving to themselves that they can adapt. Confidence is not built by thinking positive thoughts or telling yourself you are fearless. It is built by taking action again and again until action becomes second nature. Consistency also helps you separate real danger from imagined danger. The first time you face a difficult situation, your mind exaggerates the risk. You feel as though everything is on the line. But when you show up repeatedly, you begin to see things clearly. You realize that making mistakes does not destroy you, that rejection does not define you, that trying and failing is not the end of the story. With every repetition, your courage grows stronger and your fear grows smaller. When you stay consistent, fear no longer has the final say in your decisions. Confidence becomes your default state, not because fear vanished, but because you trained yourself to move forward despite it. This transformation cannot happen in a single moment of bravery. It is built brick by brick, day by day, through relentless repetition. Consistency separates dreamers from achievers. Everyone has dreams. It is easy to imagine a better future, to picture yourself living a life of success, freedom, and fulfillment. People love to talk about their plans, their goals, and their ambitions. But dreaming is effortless. It requires no discipline, no sacrifice, no action. Achieving, on the other hand, is hard. It demands that you show up day after day, even when the excitement is worn off, even when progress feels painfully slow, even when nobody notices your effort. This is where the difference between dreamers and achievers becomes clear. Dreamers stay in the world of imagination, but achievers commit to the grind. Consistency is the dividing line between those who merely wish and those who make it happen. It is what transforms ideas into reality. Many people start with passion. They begin a project full of energy and enthusiasm, telling everyone about their big plans. But as soon as the challenges appear, as soon as the work becomes uncomfortable or repetitive, they fade away. They look for shortcuts, they wait for perfect timing, or they simply stop altogether, convincing themselves that maybe it was not meant to be. Achievers are different. They understand that passion might light the fire, but consistency keeps it alive. They keep building even when it feels boring, even when the results are invisible, even when others have given up. This is why most people never see their dreams materialize. They confuse intention with action. Talking about change feels good, posting about goals feels productive, but real transformation only comes through repetition. The achievers are not necessarily the most talented, but they are relentless. They keep taking the next step, no matter how small, and eventually they separate themselves from the crowd. What started as a small lead turns into a wide gap, because while others stopped, they kept going. Consistency also creates a level of mastery that dreamers never reach. Doing something once or twice will not make you great at it. Reading one book will not make you an expert. practicing a skill for a week will not make you world class, but repeating it, refining it, improving day after day will turn you into someone who not only reaches their goals, but surpasses them. This mastery is what makes achievers stand out. Their results speak for themselves, and people call them gifted or lucky. But what they are really witnessing is the product of quiet, persistent effort. Dreamers often wait for inspiration or the perfect moment, but achievers create their own momentum by taking action consistently. They understand that waiting is a trap. There will never be a day when everything feels just right. So they start where they are, with what they have, and trust that clarity and progress will come through movement. This mindset allows them to keep going when others hesitate, giving them a massive advantage over time. And the most powerful thing about this process is that consistency does not just change your results. It changes you. It builds a stronger identity, one rooted in perseverance and discipline. You stop seeing yourself as someone who only dreams and start seeing yourself as someone who finishes. You begin to trust that you can handle setbacks, push through resistance, and stay the course no matter how long it takes. This is why achievers eventually stand apart. Not because they were destined for greatness from the start, but because they refused to let inconsistency rob them of their potential. They kept taking the steps that others found too small, too boring, too hard, and those steps led them to a place where dreamers only wish they could be. Consistency makes you unstoppable. There comes a point when consistency stops being just an action and becomes a force of nature. When you have trained yourself to keep showing up, to keep building, to keep moving no matter the circumstances, you become almost impossible to defeat. Obstacles no longer break you. They simply become part of the process. Challenges that once intimidated you start to feel like stepping stones. This is the transformation that happens when consistency becomes part of who you are. It turns you into someone who cannot easily be shaken, someone who keeps going long after others have given up. Being unstoppable does not mean you never face difficulties or moments of doubt. It means you have developed such a rhythm of forward motion that setbacks cannot hold you down for long. Every time life knocks you down, you get back up because showing up has become your natural state. You no longer wait to feel ready. You no longer waste energy arguing with yourself about whether to continue. You simply act. This quiet persistence is what gives you an edge over everyone still trapped in hesitation and self-doubt. Consistency also makes you immune to external distractions. People who lack discipline are easily swayed by trends, opinions, and temporary emotions. They start one thing today, abandon it tomorrow, and spend their lives chasing the next exciting idea. But once you have trained yourself to commit and stick with something, you develop a kind of tunnel vision that keeps you focused on your purpose. You stop being pulled in every direction and start channeling all your energy into the path that matters most. That level of focus creates momentum so strong that others cannot help but notice. Another reason consistency makes you unstoppable is that it compounds results in ways most people underestimate. Small daily efforts may seem insignificant at first, but over time they create exponential growth. A person who writes 1 page a day has a book at the end of the year. A person who saves a small amount every month builds wealth over time. A person who trains daily becomes stronger, sharper, more resilient with every passing season. This compounding effect turns steady action into extraordinary transformation. And by the time others realize how far you have gone, it is nearly impossible for them to catch up. This persistence also builds unshakable confidence. When you have a track record of showing up no matter how you feel, you start to trust yourself deeply. That trust eliminates the fear that holds most people hostage. You know you can handle difficulty because you have handled it before. You know you will figure things out because you always do. That belief in yourself is a powerful weapon, because the moment you are convinced you cannot be broken, the world has no choice but to take you seriously. Consistency turns you into someone who intimidates obstacles. Challenges stop being roadblocks and become invitations to rise higher. People around you may start to call you disciplined, determined, or even lucky, but you will know the truth. It is not luck. It is not chance. It is the power of relentless action stacking up over time until quitting is no longer part of your vocabulary. And perhaps the most liberating part of becoming unstoppable is that you no longer fear slow progress. You stop comparing yourself to others. Stop doubting whether it is worth it. Stop worrying about how long it will take. You simply trust the process, knowing that every step moves you closer, and that as long as you continue, the outcome is inevitable.